Well, greetings and welcome to another episode of Just One Thing for Health. We at Hippocrates Docs are so excited to have our resident nutritionist, Lori DiPietro, stand in, and our guest for tonight, Dr. Yolanda Wade. And without further ado, I'm Leland Hawkins. I'm the program manager. It's so awesome for me to have this opportunity to open up everything and get things started here. And I want to welcome everyone. We're going to talk about something really exciting, and commitment is something that, we're the first ones to say, I'm going to give it up because it's just me. Well, we're going to show you how to do something different tonight. And as we do, I'm going to say welcome to Lori and have her say some things, and then we're going to get started. Hi, Lori.
Hey, Leland, and hello, Dr. Wade, and all of the people who are joining us tonight. I am excited to be here on behalf of Just One Thing for Health. I'm a plant-based nutritionist and a weight loss coach, and tonight's topic is near and dear to me. And so when I found out that Dr. Yolanda Wade was going to be joining us and talking about this thing that I am so passionate about, I was so excited to get her take on it and to understand a little bit more about how she motivates her patients. Dr. Yolanda is a doctor of integrative medicine, and I am going to turn it over to her to tell us a little bit more about her background before we get started.
And
hello?
There
Hi
you go.
Hello. Welcome to the party. I am Dr. Wade. I'm a board-certified family physician. I'm also fellowship-trained and board-certified in integrative holistic medicine. I have an integrative consultative practice where food is always the first prescription. And in fact, I rarely write other prescriptions. I treat from the womb to the tomb, although I no longer deliver. But I'm incredibly passionate about teaching people to eat the colors of the rainbow, and that means eating lots of fruits and veggies on a daily basis. This was such an exciting topic to dig down deep and to find a super interesting niche in research, which is commitment science. And many of the principles of commitment science are things that we learn, or at least that I learned in my family medicine training, in terms of how to start with motivation for a patient, but more importantly, how to keep patients motivated, committed to the changes that they want to make. So I look forward to talking to you guys about that tonight.
Yeah, this is so exciting because it's really not only the first step, but as you said, it's an ongoing thing. They have to stay committed to the process. So I know that you want to talk to us about the WOOP method. And can you tell us a little bit more about how that came about before you go into the different components?
Sure. I think first what I'd like to do is to have people just imagine the warm, fuzzy, just delightful feeling of transition, of something new. So thinking about, say, New Year's Day and your excitement and making resolutions for the new year, or thinking about your birthday and reflecting on your past, but also what you want to change in the future, or thinking about graduating from whatever school or degree program or certification program, and how really excited you can be in that moment about the possibilities about what happens next. I want to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm so excited about this. And so the first piece of figuring out where your commitment is, even before you get to the WOOP, is really acknowledging, taking a moment to be very mindful about just the pleasure that comes from making a decision to do something. And whatever that something is, in this case, we're talking about transitioning to a plant-based diet, but just put yourself into the good feels on, I'm going to make this change. The problem with those good feels of New Year's resolutions or birthday promises to yourself or graduation hopes is that those good feels can sometimes get a little bit of the dwindles a couple of weeks later when the reality of your day-to-day life sets in. And so in the research field of commitment science, Dr. Ettinger has quite brilliantly come up with a very clever way to help to acknowledge, to take a moment to be mindful of the excitement of that transition. I want to do something new and different, but more importantly, how do you stay committed to that new and different, particularly when that new and different is about improving your overall health and wellness in the way that transitioning to a plant-based diet can be. And so in Dr. Ettinger's research, because we like clever names to help us to remember things, it's so much easier than trying to remember responsibility and process planning and, you know, things that don't really go together. Ettinger has come up with the mnemonic of WOOP, where W stands for wish, and that's specifically what is it that you're wishing for. The first O stands for outcome. What do you hope to achieve from that wish? The second O is for obstacles. And then the final P, W-O-O-P, the final P is for plan. Now, we can jump a little bit more deeply into each one of those letters. So first of all, with the wish, one of the things that is really important to acknowledge is that you have to want to make the change for yourself. If you're being pushed from the outside to make the change, so for instance, your doctor says to you, because of your fill in the blank here, your weight, your blood pressure, your blood sugars, your cholesterol, your family history around cancer, because of these factors, you need to change the way you're eating. You need to get more vegetables into your diet. You know, and intellectually, we all know that there is value in eating more vegetables. Realistically, particularly here in Western diets, in the standard American diet, I frequently have patients who don't even eat a vegetable one serving a day. And so setting the super lofty goal of eating 5 to 7 vegetables each day as medicine for that variety of medical conditions that I listed can sometimes seem a bit daunting when you don't even eat 4 vegetables a week. So being told that you need to do it may make you say with your mouth that you need to make the change, but it doesn't connect your mind and your heart to actually sticking to the change. What you need is an internal pull in order to make that happen. And so making your wish a whole lot more personal. I don't want to die in my 40s of a heart attack like I've seen people in my family. I do want to be at a healthier weight because I want to be able to engage actively with my children or with my grandchildren or with my peer group. Some other internal motivations. I want to have great energy, and I want that energy to not be dependent on a cup of coffee. I want mental clarity that lasts throughout the course of the day. I don't want highs and lows where I can feel my focus and my concentration changing. Maybe even on a strictly functional level, I want to be able to eliminate efficiently. I want to poop every day. So these are really personal connections, personal polls for why you might want the big picture wish of transitioning to a plant-based diet. But I also want to kind of hone down a little bit more. I want to eat a plant-based diet is a very big, broad, lofty goal and can seem daunting, as I said, particularly if you're not someone who eats vegetables on a daily basis to start with. And so the science says it's super important for you to get specific in that goal. And so I'm using that plant-based diet as an example and saying at the end of, as an example, at the end of 30 days, I want to be eating 5 servings of vegetables every single day. The difference between I want to transition to a plant-based diet and at the end of 30 days, I'll eat 5 vegetables every day is that we're applying that SMART model, the very specific S, measurable, M, A, attainable, the R is for relevant, and then the T is for time specific. So I am giving a specific interval for where I will go from point A to point Z at the end of 30 days. And so making that wish very, very concrete, but also personal is really, really important as the W.
So Dr. Yolanda, if I could ask a question on that. So most often, because obviously you've been in practice for a while, and when you have people coming to you, do you find most often that they are coming to you with that kind of wish, the specific things that they want, or is it more you telling them, here's why you need to do this?
It is super incredibly rare that on an initial visit or even on a follow-up visit that the patient has walked in with a very specific goal. What is common, because I practice integrative medicine, is that they come with very big, lofty general goals, but not with a very specific goal. No, that's not common at all.
Okay, so it's a lot of you helping them hone in on their specific goal and why it's important to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Finding their own level of connection, of personal connection to the goal, and not me being directed, these are the reasons why you need to do it. You know, I think we're a pretty savvy society in 2019, and I think the statistics are like that 90% of households across income levels have some level of connection to the internet. That's a huge amount of access to information. I don't think there's anyone who does not believe that vegetables are good for you, but that's not a personal connection to why you should increase plant-based foods in your diet.
So if we could just take a little sidetrack for just a second, can you tell us why, just for the people here who are either new to a plant-based diet or still transitioning, what you've seen in your experience in education and practice that makes you recommend this so highly?
So if we look at the leading causes of both illness, but also ultimately death, not just here in the US, but across the world, they all have a connection to how we're eating. So cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, all of those have very clear and very specific connections to the foods that you're eating. And the research, both broad general population-based research, but also more specific illness-focused research, shows that the foods that you're eating, and more specifically the vegetables and the fruits, the really colorful plant-based foods that you're including in your diet, are actually nutrient powerhouses that in many cases are as effective at treating diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, even preventing cancer, are as effective from a treatment standpoint as any prescription that I could write for you. And the best part about increasing the plant-based foods is that your side effect profile is negligible compared to any one medication that I could write for you. So the reason for using food as medicine first, and specifically plant-based foods as medicine, is because the research very clearly shows those populations that have plant-predominant diets are far healthier populations, not just longer living, but higher quality of life for that longevity. And so that is why transitioning to plant-based eating is critical for all of us if our goal in the big picture is to live vibrant lives.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that, because it's confusing for people because of all of the, they are on information overload out there.
Yes.
Not all the right information, unfortunately, and so it is so important to have you on here to talk about, you know, the facts and what you actually see in the research and in, you know, just observation. So I know I took a sidetrack there. Did you want to talk about outcomes?
Sure. So in the next step in WOOP, the outcome, what you're doing in this step is being very, very specific in what you hope to achieve, what you see your life looking like when you are following through on that initial wish, and that initial dream, that initial goal. So What does that feel like? And I gave some, touched on some examples earlier. I have better energy. I have better focus and concentration. My skin is clearer. I'm no longer constipated or bloated. I'm achieving a healthier weight than I currently have. I'm sleeping better. My blood pressures are better. My blood sugars are better. My cholesterol is lower. You want to be super, super specific from an outcome standpoint in terms of how you see your new life on the other side of having achieved your very specific SMART goal.
I think too, I know, well, as a weight loss coach, of course, but just as a woman, something that I notice with a lot of my clients is that, you know, when they start to lose the weight, they get this feeling too of empowerment, you know, that they're feeling in control of their lives again in all areas now that they've gotten control over this one aspect. And it's amazing to see the freedom, the lightness that they start to feel mentally and emotionally because of that.
Yes, yes, and that, and really coloring in the picture, not just outlining it in black and white, but coloring in that picture on how much better you'll feel is an important piece of that second step of the outcome, painting your picture.
Right, really envisioning yourself as the person that you deserve to be and that you know you can be.
Yes, yes, yes.
But the next one is obstacles, and I know that's something that you get all excited about the wishes and the outcomes, and you forget to plan for the obstacles.
Yes, so in this stage, in the obstacle stage, what you need to do is to really bust your four walls wide open and think about all the ways that you may be sidetracked from sticking to your new goal, which is, in this example, 5 servings of fruits and veggies at the end of 30 days. If you don't have vegetables in your refrigerator, that's an obstacle. You need to have actual access to veggies in order to include veggies in your diet. If you live in a food desert where there's plenty of fast food available, but not really a lot of fresh produce, or even high quality frozen produce without added sauces, that might be an obstacle. If you work in an office where people just don't like eating veggies and don't want to choose restaurants at lunchtime where veggies and fruits are part of the menu, that could be a really significant obstacle. If you have a family of reference that it's just not a part of their fabric, including plant-based foods in the diet, that might be an obstacle. So you really want to think about all of the emotional, all of the social, all of the environmental things that might get in the way of your achieving your goal of increasing your plant-based foods in your diet.
I know I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go, you go.
So I do also want to just say to any of our guests, feel free to either come on the microphone or talk in the chat if you'd like to ask questions about your specific obstacles. But I also just wanted to say to Dr. Wade, so one thing that I talk to clients about a lot is peer pressure. They feel a lot of pressure from their families or their significant other about having a plant-based diet. A lot of times they don't have the support at home, at least not at the beginning. And I was wondering what advice that you give your clients. I'm sure you get the same type of thing. So I'm just wondering how you talk to your patients about this.
Yeah, so great question, because it completely segues into the last step, which is planning. It's the if this happens, what will be my response to it? So instead of having to make a choice at every turn, when I go eat at my brother's house, he never has plant-based foods, he's a meat and potatoes kind of guy, you've anticipated that obstacle and you've already made a plan in advance for that. So that plan might be that you bring a veggie as a side dish to contribute to the family meal that you're having. That plan might be that you very clearly state prior to getting into that social situation, hey, this is what My super specific goal is I'm going to be eating 5 servings of veggies every day at the end of 30 days, and I'd love to continue to come to your house for our family dinner, but I need to be sure that there's going to be vegetables there, or how can I contribute to making that happen? So yes, your peer group can divert you, but your peer group can also, and if you know that your peer group stands a chance of diverting you, you've already worked out your plan in advance. On the flip side, broadcasting to your peer group that you want to make, I apologize, that was a loud car. Broadcasting to your peer group that you want to make the change can in some ways help to increase your level of accountability. When you make the announcement, hey, I'm going to be doing 5 servings of plant-based foods every day, sometimes it turns on a switch in some of your peers and they say, hey, how are you doing on that? They may not be able to able to make that change, but they can be encouraging and at least can present on board and to say, hey, it's working out well in this way. Hey, I sidetracked in this way. Do you have any ideas about this? So really getting your group to weigh in a supportive manner. And even if it's not supportive, just so that, there's always going to be that one person, that one friend or that one colleague who's the detractor, right? They're going to be the ones who say, oh, it's ridiculous. Don't do that. You can't do that. It's not sustainable. You're eating like a bird, all of the negative talk. But you've already worked out that person is one of your obstacles, and that whooping is one of your obstacles, and this is your plan. And your plan might be that you say to them, I hear what you're saying. That's not my truth. I'm committed to my goal. But not having to think it through every time that detractor brings the detracting information to you, but having a set response is where that plan piece comes in. You already have a very clear plan, so you don't have to make a decision each time. You have a clear plan in place, and that helps you to stay better committed because you've anticipated in advance. Now, sometimes something happens that you hadn't anticipated. You'll add that to your list of outcomes and plans so that when it comes up again, you already have a ready response.
Right. And that makes so much sense because when you do have those detractors, they are like a broken record. They pretty much say the same thing every time. So if you have your response ready, that makes total sense.
Yep.
What if that person is your spouse? How do you, what advice do you give that might be any different for somebody like that?
I think the advice remains the same, and if you have a spouse who's like that, because they're not going to just be like that around your diet. They're like that in other situations too. It may or may not reflect on your love for your spouse, but if you have that kind of a spouse or sister in the home with you or roommate in the home with you. But I think in that outcome, in that obstacle stage, identifying them as the obstacle and working out specific scenarios. Well, if this person says this is my response to it, and sticking to that. The thing is to not have to keep thinking of a new response every time they come up to detract, to get you off your game. You have one response that stays consistent, and that response is about, this is my outcome that I'm working towards at the end of these 30 days or these 3 months or whatever. So think through one way to react to it, and that's the end of it. There are not options on how you do it. It's the one way that you do it.
That makes total sense. So what more then, after they've identified their obstacles, what more can you say about the planning part? Because obviously that's a very important piece.
Yeah, I would say, think about setting a goal in the future. So maybe you have a week's lead time, and just as you're walking through your day-to-day over the course of the week before you're launching to make this change, think of every situation that you hit over the course of that week. Think of every person that you encounter over the course of that week. Think of every thought that flows through your head over the course of that week. Maybe you even keep a little note in your cell phone, or hey, as a throwback, you write it down on a little piece of paper. This is a situation that might be a challenge when I make this change.
Right. So it's
And
not out of the blue.
it's not out of the blue, right? So sort of in your preparatory stage, that you give yourself a week's lead time or 2 weeks lead time, and really just kind of experience life as you're experiencing it now, and projecting about, hey, this is a moment that might be a challenge when I make this change.
Right. So when you present it this way to your patients, what are some of the responses that you get from patients in terms of how, you know, the good and the bad and the ugly, how they're dealing with this process?
Yeah, certainly it's hard. It's not easy. And maybe it even seems impossible, is an often first response. But I do think that breaking it down into those stages really helps a lot. And I think the most important part is finding your personal why, your personal connection, your personal reason for why this is important, and really continuing to circle back to that personal pull, that personal internal pull, is just an important piece of achieving success, not only seeing success, but achieving success. And the really super cool thing, and I know that you see this too in your work, once you make one small change and you stay consistent with that small change, other changes start to follow. So, you know, you make a commitment that you're going to do 5 servings of veggies at the end of 30 days. And then you notice that, hey, I'm also feeling more energetic, so I'm moving more. And you know what, in the back of your head, you had the lofty goal of, I'll start exercising, but I actually didn't have enough energy or motivation or whatever, all of the reasons why it wasn't happening before, but now you do have more energy. And so that lifestyle change starts to fall into place. It really is an avalanche. Once you make that first step and stay committed to that first step, which is why it's so important to be really, really specific. Don't have 10 different things that you're working on. Set one very smart goal, stick to that smart goal, and then you'll find that other really positive lifestyle things fall into place as well.
I think that really helps with people's self-esteem also, because I know that a lot of times by the time someone comes to me and they do have health issues that they're saying, I've got to get this weight off, and I feel like, you know, they know that a plant-based diet can be really effective, not just for weight, but for health. But they feel like they've tried so many things in the past, and that they failed so many times that they don't want to fail again.
Right.
And so it seems like, from what you're saying, that breaking it down into these small pieces, you know, it's easier to chew, to put a metaphor.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's not so overwhelming.
So much easier to eat that stalk of broccoli than the whole forest. Yes, yes.
Yeah, because I think that I mean, that's the way I break things into steps, because you really, most of us have been taught to eat the standard American diet our whole lives. And
Right.
It's wrapped up in everything that we do, every holiday, every special occasion, every outing, every restaurant, you know, you go to the grocery store and they have pastries that are pink for breast cancer awareness. I mean, it's just the craziness.
Right. Right. Right.
It's a lot. I think people feel overwhelmed at first because it is, you know, our culture is so unhealthy.
And we're also a pretty mega kind of a culture. So, you know, the super extreme, biggest, most extravagant, and it's really the simpler things that you connect to personally that are more associated with true satisfaction and health and wellness and longevity. It's not the excesses, the overdoing, it's the little things that count so much. And so, yes, we're from a societal standpoint, overwhelmed. And And that's why it's important to break it down into just a little tiny piece, and to even just at a neurotransmitter level, the reward at the end of 30 days of looking back and say, I went from eating barely a serving a day to now I'm at 5 a day. That reward system is self-perpetuating. You release that dopamine, you feel good about yourself, you like feeling good about yourself, and so you continue to do that. So breaking it down into just a smaller, more achievable goal, again, it just starts an avalanche of being able to look back in 6 months or in a year and say, wow, look at how far I've come.
Yeah, and to dovetail on what you're saying about the brain, I mean, you're actually, during that month that you're making those changes, you're making new connections in your brain. You're making new pathways and forming new habits. So that it does get easier. And that's what I always tell people is like, I know it seems really hard at the beginning, but at some point it becomes your new comfort zone. You don't even have to think about it. So that's the awesome.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to share, there's just a really great quote to that effect from Sidney Harris. He's a journalist, and I am parked, so I'm reading this, not driving down the highway.
Okay, yeah. Yes.
Our dilemma is that we hate change and we love it at the same time. What we really want is for things to remain the same, but to get better. And it's so true. Like we all want to feel better and live better and be better, but gosh, do we have to do something to make that happen? I think if we can identify just the one little thing that we can do, and again, just being really smart about that one little thing, you start to pull all the positive energy, all the new, as you said, neuronal connections, the habits, all the better habits, those things start to fall into place.
Right. Yeah, change is, I always tell my clients that, change is hard, and that even if they change, that the people around them who aren't changing are going to be upset that they're changing, because then they have to change their dynamic with the person who's changing. So it's a lot of change for everybody, and people, like you said, it's like it sounds great, but when it comes right down to it, people are resistant. So I have a question here in the chat. It says, how can someone commit to themselves when they've lived their lives committed to others and without feeling they're worth the attention? This led to finding cooking a great way to connect, and now they're eating differently, so they aren't cooking the same. They've stopped cooking. Are there any suggestions about what they can do to return to a place of feeling good and healthy emotionally? So I'm assuming this means someone who's really connected, through our standard American diet and cooking those dishes that, are ham-based or something that everybody loves. And I see this a lot, actually, with my clients. They'll say, I'm trying to do better, but I go to my family's house and this is what they make, and this is what I grew up with, and this is what I always eat, and they get upset if I don't eat it. So what's your answer to all of that?
Well, I think in some ways, you have to remember to give yourself some grace, but you also need to find your legs, find your voice, and pull on your inner strength to be able to draw the lines that you're not willing to cross, for what you're not willing to compromise on. Ultimately, that social piece of it, particularly with our loved ones want to love us. And sometimes our loved ones go kicking and screaming when we're making changes that are beneficial for ourselves.
Yes,
but ultimately, you are in your best position to pour out more love on your loved ones when you're feeling your best. So it's not a selfish thing to stay committed to your goal. It actually allows you to be more giving when you're committed to your goal. So, if fundamentally you are a people pleaser, you can't keep pleasing people if you don't feel good. So you have to find your strength. And that's such a huge area of, at least in the general context, in the communal context that we're talking about more now. With social expectations versus our personal needs. And it's perfectly okay to need something that's different from what society expects from us. And you have to find your legs for that. And the way that you find your legs is by exercising. You gotta stretch that muscle out. And so setting your boundary, being clear about what you won't compromise on, but also giving yourself some grace. So, you know, if at the Thanksgiving dinner, the apple pie is your is your thing that connects you because your grandmother made it for you when you were 5 years old. You need to decide in advance, because you've planned. That's an obstacle, right? You've planned in advance. How am I going to respond when this happens? And if your choice, your mindful choice beforehand is, you know what, I'll have that piece of apple pie, then go ahead and have that piece of apple pie. But don't beat yourself up afterwards. If, on the other hand, your obstacle being identified and your plan is, no, I'll still say no, and create a new tradition. Figure out something new that the family can connect to. Experiment, have fun around it. But ultimately, you have to stretch that muscle. And sometimes it's scary, and sometimes it's strange and unusual, and sometimes it hurts a little. But eventually, you start to build the bulk in that muscle, and it becomes norm for you.
And exactly what you said, you can't pour from an empty cup, you know, and I tell people that all the time, you know, running yourself ragged and beating yourself down and, you know, being tired and unhealthy and, you know, feeling bad about yourself is not a way that you're going to be of any service to other people or be a good example.
No.
And so that's, you know, it's so important. And I have to tell you too, I loved it when you said inner strength. That's actually the name of my business. And it's exactly because of what you said. Because when I first started this journey 13 years ago, that was what I realized was like, I can have all the information in the world. It's not going to do anything unless I have the inner strength to make it happen in my life.
Right.
And so that is such an important piece. We also have a comment. This would be a good opportunity to make things fun by learning dishes that you can make that are substitutes for the traditional dishes. So, you know.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
Yeah. That's actually what we were talking about before you called in was, you know, people making some different things for Easter, you know, that are plant-based and, you know, trying some new things out, making new traditions, which is really fun and exciting.
I love.
So before we wrap up, what else? Well, again, I want to open it up to any of our guests if there's anything that you want to say, any other comments. But what else? Is there anything else, any little bit of wisdom we can grab out of you while we have you on the line about this process, about what you've seen in your experience and what you have to say to others about this? Any golden nuggets?
Yeah, I would absolutely just emphasize the importance of each person finding their own personal level of connection, level of motivation. We all know the science, we all know the facts, but the facts don't connect to your heart. And I think you need to connect all three pieces in order to actually not make a change, but to sustain a change, to be committed to that change such that it's not even change anymore. It's part of your lifestyle. So find your own personal why. And you know what? One of the things that we don't do enough of is just sitting quietly with ourselves to just dig down deeply like that and figure out what that is. So I would say mindfulness, taking the time by yourself to figure out your personal why on that are really, really critical things. And I can't say it enough to get really, really specific, hone in on a very specific change that you can make. You can have as your background, my big picture is I want to transition to a plant-based diet, but get super specific on one little thing that you can change to move you in that direction, and really ride the wave that happens as you lay down, as you incorporate that as just a part of your lifestyle. Definitely advertise. let your friends, let your family, let your coworkers know about it. The folks who support you can be very, very supportive. Even if they're not making the change, they can be supportive. And the ones who want to detract are going to still be detractors. And so allow the space for that to happen. The super cool thing, though, that I notice a lot, I've been practicing for 25 years now. Once people make change and they're on the other side of that change, such that it's not even change anymore, it is lifestyle, they say, guess what? My brother said he wants to try this. Or guess what? My daughter's going to change what she's doing right now. So, you know, they can continue to be detractors. You just be strong in your choices and in your goal. And eventually those folks see how good you're feeling and how good you're looking, and they start getting curious themselves. And then you get to be a bit of a mentor in that process to help them along the way.
That is so true. And I've seen that happen time and time again, where the people who are the most hardcore against, you know, my clients and what they were doing, after a while will be like, now what's that you're doing again? And
right.
They get to be the Yoda to this new Jedi. So
yes.
It is so exciting. And I know personally a few of the people who are joining in on the call tonight, and I know that this is a personal confirmation for them that they're on the right track. So I am so happy that you were able to join us even by phone and talk about this really important topic. And I just really thank you and Veland for allowing me to be part of the call tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Dr. Wade, this was awesome. We'd love to see everyone whoop up their commitment to change by recognizing that it starts from within, that inner strength piece. And Lori, thank you so much. Great questions, great delivery from both of you. And to everyone who's joined us tonight, everyone who is going to be listening or watching, we thank you for doing that and being there. Make sure you go to our website, justonethingforhealth.com, and get your subscription. We still have an offer for an upgrade to a premium when you sign up now, so make sure you do that. We are about to launch some exciting things in the premium membership. And if you are a doctor or a health practitioner who wants to be a part of the Just One Thing for Health and Hippocrates Docs family, let us know. Go to the website, shoot us an email, let us know of your interest, and be a part of the family. One of the things that we have recognized is that more people need to know what we know and are learning, what doctors like Dr. Wade is sharing, what nutritionists and other practitioners like Lori are bringing to the forefront in the way of information and support while you're on your journey. So stay tuned for another episode next week. Stay tuned for all that's going to be happening at our Facebook page. You can check out our Facebook page by going to, I think I got it here. There you go. Facebook.com/Just One Thing for Health. And we love what we're doing. We love that we're supporting you, and we want to do more. So ask your questions, share your story, ask for what it is that you might need in the way of additional help or support. We're here for you. Thanks, everyone. I'm Veland Hawkins, and it has been my pleasure to be the host of tonight's show. Oh, and by the way, I guess I let the cat out of the bag. We are going to be transitioning to a web TV show and podcast show. So stay with us, support us as we're supporting you, and we send you our love and look forward to you joining us again. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Dr. Wade.